You ever have one of those days?
One of what days?
Those days where you can't seem to get it together.
No, not really. I power through every day like a boss.
When the smallest task hits you like a 400-pound charging defensive lineman?
Yeah, no, I eat days like that for breakfast, but I also eat almonds.
Almonds?
Yeah, tiny little football-shaped power nuts with 6 grams of energy-giving protein.
Can I have a handful?
Fine. California almonds. Own your everyday, every day.
Are you hiring? With Indeed, you can post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on your short list of qualified candidates using an online dashboard. Get started today at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast.
All right, people, listen up. We have a big favor to ask, and we promise it won't take up too much of your time. You know our show is supported by some fantastic sponsors, right? Well, we'd love to hear your feedback. Head to podcast.study and fill out a short, anonymous survey. That's it. We swear. Again, that's podcast.study.
This is the best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
Well, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome in to another edition of Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2 for the first 2 hours of this program. Keep reminding you of that because we're excited about that. Glad you're with us. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here with you. Always nice to come in on a Tuesday after a Monday night game, especially after a double-dip Monday night game.
The best thing about that is Game 1 starts at 7:10.
Yes, it does.
I mean,
so
that
we
is
can catch it.
I just wish that was every time. I understand why it can't be. Believe me, I get it before we start hearing it from the West Coast. I understand. But that one time a year, it is very, very nice to do.
It's a beautiful thing, and you want to be a part of both of them. But obviously with our morning schedule, I know usually those ones hit you guys a little bit harder just because, listen, I'm south of 30. I understand I have these advantages. But, man,
I feel great. I don't know what you're talking about.
Trying to stay away for that second half of that Monday night doubleheader last night, that was a battle.
That's what caffeine was invented for.
Yes.
Let's be clear. That's its sole purpose on the planet.
Wonder if Khalil Mack stayed awake and watched that game.
I'm going to say he did. And I'm going to say he enjoyed it. So we have a lot to get into, including the finals of the Ryder Cup being put together, and we have the finals of who's going to be in the Tour Championship. And we would be remiss if we did not say we understand the significance of this day. It is 9/11, and 17 years ago, a lot of people's lives changed forever. And we'll get into our recollections.
It really did. We were both obviously here
Yep.
and on the air when I know I was on the air when on you during the day. So we'll certainly talk about that some as well. But it's obviously a day we'll never forget.
No chance. Ever. No way, no how. We also have a lot to get to in baseball. We have some great guests coming up for you today, and we have a lot to get into. So let's start, as we always do, with what's trending. And the Lions-Jets game wasn't the only thing in Detroit last night. Justin Verlander made his return for the first time since being traded to the Houston Astros last season, and he led them to a 3-2 victory over the Tigers. Verlander, 15-9, made his major league debut with the Tigers in 2005. Gosh, that seems like a long time ago. And ranks among the top 10 on several of the team's career lists. Struck out 10 over 7 innings.
Yeah, so Astros team has a 3-game lead on the A's. A's right now 3 games behind the Yankees for that top spot in the wild card. I wonder, that game was in Detroit. Anybody double dip?
Oh, man. Get to both of those? I can't
imagine, no, because the Detroit game, obviously, the football game started at 7, so.
Yeah, and even if you did, would you want to cop to being at that Lions game after last night?
Well,
for the first play.
Yeah, I was going to say, for all of about 30 seconds, as fleeting as my national championship hopes were, so too were the hopes of Lions fans in attendance for that game last night.
I immediately, we'll get into that when I tweeted out right after that happened. But for the Tigers, they actually had 19,000 people in the stadium for that game.
I think all 19,000 were there to see Justin Verlander.
Yeah, I would say so.
With the way things have gone.
Yeah, I got 3 standing ovations. That's very, very cool.
It was very, very cool. First time at Comerica since being traded away, as we said, to Houston in August of 2017, and Verlander wound up doing very, very much Verlander things, as once again the Astros took the lead. They're now 3 games up
on Oakland
in the West, and the Yankees are now 3 games up for the wild card, as they look like they're going to have home field advantage for that game, which is critical for them. Well, now things are very interesting in the NL Central. Forget about the wild card standing. The Brewers are now in this to win it. Lorenzo Cain had 4 hits. And the Brewers beat the Chicago Cubs 3-2 to move within one game of the division-leading Cubs, guys.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. They have two more games that they still got to play, and then that's it. They don't meet again for the rest of the season. So, as we always talk about, is when do you meet it? Like the Yankees and the Red Sox are going to meet, but that's really going to be meaningless. They got 3 games at the end of the season. You'd like it to have some meaning on it, but unfortunately we're not getting that in some of these races here because I think some people are surprised at who's involved in these races. But yeah, let's say 2 more games today and tomorrow, and that's it. No more Milwaukee and no more Milwaukee against the Cubs. We just wait and see how it all has to play out.
Yeah, and certainly the Cubs benefiting, getting that nice bump since Daniel Murphy got there, 12-6 since acquiring him around the All-Star break, 3rd best record in the NL behind the Brewers and the Dodgers. So this is that push we've been looking for a Cubs team that, and this race in particular, I know we've talked about a lot of them, but this one seems to have lagged behind what we've seen out on the West Coast, certainly there, and what has gone on with the Red Sox and the Yankees for the majority of the season. Some of our East Coast bias surely playing into that, but the Cubs, darling team once upon a time, now locked in this great battle.
They are significantly locked in that battle, and we'll see what happens going forward. Again, that lead in the NL Central is now down to 1. I'm not sure, outside of the start of the season in the NFL, if anything makes me happier than saying we have 2 distinctly separate golf stories today.
I know. How about that? You got to be happy.
Oh, I'm more than a little tickled, Mike. I'm not going to lie to you. And let's start with someone else who's probably more than a little tickled. That is Keegan Bradley. Against all odds, literally against all odds, they managed to finish the BMW Championships at Aronimink outside of Philadelphia because the weather was less than cooperative Sunday, and it was supposed to be even less cooperative on Monday, but they managed to get it in, and that was a very, very good thing for Keegan Bradley, who beat Justin Rose with a par in the first playoff hole to win the rain-plagued BMW Championships, and it was his first tour victory, guys, in 6 years.
Yeah, nice win for him. Again, you're right of getting that thing in. It was ugly day with the rain and how wet it was everywhere. Justin Rose, though, getting beat in the playoff, he did go move to number 1 in the world. So there's that. That's not a bad consolation prize. You may have lost the playoff, but now you're number 1 in the world. Tiger shot 5 under, 65, 3 strokes off the lead. He moved to 20th in the FedEx Cup points, the playoff standings. Jordan Spieth is on the outside looking in for the first time in his career as well. So, again, we have a week to wait before we get to the final tournament where 10 mils on the line.
Yeah, when you go into that, and it sounds weird saying this phrase outside of the realm of something like college basketball, where we hear this all the time, but you've got 5 players going into that championship that control their own destiny.
Right.
5 guys that with a win, with the top 5 players in the FedEx Cup point standing after the championship control their destiny. So a win next week gets them that 10 mil. It's Bryson DeChambeau, Justin Rose, Tony Finau, Dustin Johnson, and Justin Rose. You mentioned newly minted world number 1. So those 5 guys, it is that simple. Everybody else 6 to 30 needs a little bit of help.
You know what they still get too? As I didn't even realize that they get the prize money for the tournament.
Oh yeah,
for they get like another 1.5 or 1.8 or whatever it is. Just
it is
throw
amazing.
it in off that. Here's 10 mil, and you won the tournament. Here's another 1 whatever.
Normally 1.5 would be good, but when there's 10 million on the line,
that's that tip you throw back to the blackjack dealer after the end of it. It's like, you can keep this one. It's been a hell of a day.
He'll be standing there with his hand out for that 1.5. It's caddy.
Oh yeah.
Hey, you just got 10 mil. It's 1.5. You don't need that. How about me?
Yeah, listen,
arms for the poor.
I know we have this other arrangement, but I kind of helped you out here. Now you mentioned Tiger. He had an amazing 4 rounds there. He shot a 68. Then an even par 70, a 62, which 8 under. Then an even par 70. Then he went 4 under and 5 under. So he actually, outside of 1 round, if he had just made a couple of birdies on that Friday round, he might have been right in there when it's all said and done. And again, philosophical Tiger is something, guys, we're going to have to get used to now going forward.
The last, I've played a few tournaments where I've come close at the end and just didn't quite, obviously get the W, but, at the end of the season here, to say that I made it back to the Tour Championship after what I've been through is a pretty good accomplishment. Lots of hard work and lots of patience and just constant feel and understanding of and fluidity, because the game has changed because the body's changed. So trying to get used to equipment, and it's been quite a year.
It really is remarkable.
Yeah. I mean, it is. But you love his thought process. We always talk about athletes when they get older. They're just not what they were in their younger days, be it by age, by injury, whatever it is, by surgeries, and they have to find a way to still make it work. And he's finding a way. He's being a lot more, you use the word, philosophical about it. There's no more, when I got the blinders on, I'm just going to win. It's win and nothing. It's win or nothing else. I mean, he understands where he is. It's pretty cool to see kind of how he's managing himself as he gets older.
Yeah, you can't just be the hammer anymore. You've got to be a little more of a chisel. You got to have the bigger picture in mind. And that's been, I think, the most. Yeah, I know that was good, right?
Wow.
Yeah, you can act like you're impressed. That was really good.
I was very good. You can't be
up.
the hammer. You need to be the chisel. There's nuance. There's subtlety going forward.
I came up with that about 30 seconds ago, and I'm not going to lie. We did a little chef's kiss in my head.
Feel good about that, huh?
Yeah. Very good.
I got to give myself some credit on that one.
Special guy?
Yeah. We'll just leave it at that. Anything else I say is going to fall well short of that bar I've set for myself. Go ahead and hit the clock, too. Let's get far away from that now, because that was great.
One other thing to notice here, Jordan Spieth did not make it.
Yep.
So he's going to get a fine
Yes,
now,
he is.
because you have to play a certain number of events on the PGA Tour, and he was counting both making it to the Tour Championship, which he's made every other year in his career, and also the Ryder Cup as those events. He's going to fall short.
Yes, he is.
So now he's going to have to literally pay the price.
Pay a fine. Yeah. He's got to give money back. It's amazing.
It's a bad hammer.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, though? He's got it to spare. I can tell you.
Yeah.
That kid's
He'll be
doing
okay.
all right for his early to mid-20s. He's well ahead of the economic curve, we'll put it that way, although he probably doesn't feel that way. And again, another distinct golf story, and this is not a win for it's a win for the show, because our guy, as predicted, by the way, by all of us, made it. Yesterday, Tony Finau was named the final captain's pick for the Ryder Cup team by our USA captain, Jim Furyk, Jimbo, J-Man, Furzy, Big Jim, Jimmy Jim. Made the pick that we all thought was going to happen. Tony Finau, the birdie machine, is the 12th and final pick for the Captain's Cup team for the Ryder Cup.
11 top 10 finishes this season, including 3 in the majors. And then obviously what he's done in this FedEx playoffs as well, how he's been doing a 2nd, a 4th, and an 8th. I mean, he's the birdie machine that you keep calling him. That's one of the reasons he got into this. Remember, he golfed with Furyk a few tournaments ago, and it was kind of a wacky round. But
PGA
he had
Championship.
10 birdies in that round. When you're a birdie machine, that's going to help you, obviously, in match play. And as Furyk said, he checked a lot of the boxes that made it impossible not to pick him.
Yeah, this pick is killing me, Shoffley, man. I tell you.
Oh.
You should have stopped with the chisel.
No,
You should have stopped with the chisel.
Xander Shoffley, by the way, wasn't he the one caping saying Keegan Bradley should have been more strongly
No, Brandel
considered?
Chambly.
Brandel
Brandel
Chambly
Chambly
said that.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
Brandel
Yeah,
Chambly.
all these E names sound the same anymore. I've peaked already at this show. Every other contribution
would
I
have
get.
been
You should
interesting.
Costanza just walk off.
It would have been interesting had Shoffley won this tournament.
I think
Where
that's
that
the
might have
only
put
way
it.
he would have sort of been really considered.
Yeah, so now we've got the full team set, though, so we can go roster by roster breakdown and start talking flack to this Euro squad, right?
Yes, and by simply name recognition and number of majors and all that kind of stuff, we should wipe the floor.
Let's just say that right now. Golic and Wingo, we are going to smoke them.
I hope you're right.
Smoke them.
I've seen far too many of these when we had the much stronger team and we go over there to their soil, and somehow Ian Poulter, every 2 years, he can stink. And for 3 days, he's the greatest player in the world.
No, you jump on this bandwagon right now.
I'm on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, I've been down this road before.
We're not just going to beat him on a golf course. We're going to beat him physically.
Yeah, oh no.
Yeah,
we're going to meet him after the round.
Exactly, after the round.
Kick the ever-loving hell out of him.
Absolutely right. It's over. Done.
Hooligan stuff. Let's be golf hooligans.
Yeah, we're going to be nice after we beat him and say, let's go out drinking, and then we're going to smoke him in the bar as well.
Well, that we can do.
We're going to out golf him, we're going to out drink him, we're going to hit him.
Yeah.
All right, we're not going to do that. But.
Well, the out drinking thing.
Getting carried away.
I think HR's on their way.
All right,
the out drinking thing may be a problem. Play the clock because I'm telling the story. Jamie Donaldson sank the winning point for the Euros a few years ago. He's a Welshman, and they got him the next morning talking about it, and he's there completely blasted still, wearing a hoodie. His eyes are like this. He looks like he's been run over by a truck. And they said, has it sunk in yet that you sunk the winning point for the Ryder Cup? And his answer was, nope. Because I'm still drunk.
There you go.
So we may not be able to outdrink them.
All right.
We can do...
That guy can come to our party.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We can do everything else. All right. Sam Darnold. We get to that. Sam Darnold's debut is what everybody's talking about. Brought to you by Lowe's. Pros in the know. Start with Lowe's. Go to lowesforpros.com. And we're talking about Sam Darnold's debut because it could not have got started off worse, and then, lo and behold, it all turned around. Here again, if you didn't see it or hear it last night, was the first pass attempt of Sam Darnold's career.
And there is the play-action fake and the bootleg right for Sam Darnold. Looks back to the left, fires one left sideline, and it's intercepted. Picked off down the sideline, heading towards the end zone, and into the end zone with a touchdown is Quandre Diggs. The first pass attempt of the career of Sam Darnold is a long, across-the-field lob that you can't make in the National Football League. You may be able to do that in the Pac-12, but that's the learning experience for Sam Darnold as Quandre Diggs with a pick six, and the Lions have the early lead.
He pulled off the college shame. I heard you talking about it this morning, right?
Oh, yeah.
I had to go down that road.
The classic, you can pull that off in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
This is the National Football League, son.
Well, that was Bob Wischusen on ESPN Radio 98.7 New York. He's also right there. I mean, those are things that's a lollipop throw that you can probably get away with.
I'm not going to sit here and say you can get away with that all the time.
I didn't say all the time. I didn't say all the time. But those are throws that those DBs aren't breaking on that ball the way they are in college.
Was that not? Because a lot of people are saying you're throwing back across your body. That was the throwback play.
That was a throwback play. I mean,
that was a shot play. That was a design throwback.
Listen,
that wasn't him just chucking it across his body back.
And when you saw the all-22, you saw Diggs. I think call correctly, kind of baiting.
Yes,
he saw
absolutely.
the bat coming out and just kind of baited. As soon as he looked back, he broke on the ball. Yeah, that without a doubt. Back's not releasing, backside out of there, just to go run a route.
Late
right
across the field is never a good
Never
idea.
good. Never good.
Never
so that's what I immediately tweeted out. Well, all Jet fans are looking for new TVs after they broke them, and boy, oh boy, from that point on,
things turned around.
Yeah, I'd say they did.
And I got to tell you, that is what USC fans will say they saw from Sam Darnold, and it gets us a chance because he finished up 16-21. 198 yards, 2 touchdowns, including a dime to Robbie Anderson.
I thought that was getting picked, too.
I thought it was a little underthrown. I thought it was a little more underthrown on when I saw it live than I saw the replay. It was a better throw than I thought it was. But you're right.
It was a good throw. It was absolutely a good throw. I thought the DB was going to pick it. No doubt Anderson had a step on him.
Yeah.
DB was making up a couple of steps because it was just a hair underthrown, but got there and it worked.
But that's why Sam Darnold's nickname at USC was the DNA, because things don't tend to faze him. And I go back to that story. He was the second of the 2 blue chip quarterbacks to sign at USC, which rarely happens. You get one blue chip, and the other guy says, well, fine, he's going to be the anointed one. I'll go sign somewhere else. Darnold went up to his OC at that time and said, best kid plays, right? And by the time week 1 rolled around, that other blue chip quarterback was transferring, in the process of transferring, because he knew Sam Darnold was going to be that guy. And Sam admitted after the game, hey, it can't get any worse than that first throw.
Obviously, licking my chops a little bit too much, I think, on that play. And then, right when it was one of those where right when I let it go, I thought I had him. And then out of the corner, right when I released it, I saw the defender and just thought, oh, shoot. And then he took it back, obviously, for a pick six. But after that, it is what it is. Put it behind you and play the game.
So you give him a lot of credit for the mental resolve it takes to come back from that.
Especially, remember, he's 21 years old. He's the youngest starting quarterback in the NFL, at least dating back to 1950. He may be late on that. We just can't trust the stats back then.
Yes, exactly. And, but like you said, this is something we knew about him from Southern Cal. He's also used to turning the ball over a lot from his time at Southern Cal, if anyone was at the Notre Dame USC game in 2017. But I digress. So we got all that, but we talked about it, that first play. While a bad idea late in that one, it was a shot. That was something the Jets offense wanted to do. And I give the Jets coaching staff credit, and Jeremy Bates in this offense in particular, because you saw when he came back over the sideline, Josh McCown is there, and he's saying, don't change a thing.
Right.
Let's not do anything different. Let's not shrink from this. And I thought the Jets came out with a good game plan that was conservative enough, that schemed open a bunch of looks, but that still allowed him to throw the ball downfield in some spots and have a great amount of success.
And we saw it with the score of this game, obviously the end, 48-17, but understand, the first drive of the second half, Detroit went down and scored pretty easily, and it was 17-all.
Correct.
It was like, well, wait a minute. This was a game 2 minutes into the second half. From that point on, look at the different ways the Jets scored.
Everywhere.
Their next 5 possession, the next 5 times they scored, offensive passing touchdown, a pick six by Darren Lee on defense, a special team touchdown on a punt return, a field goal, and a running touchdown by Kroll, who went 62 yards. So they scored every way imaginable, put up 31 in the second half.
31 unanswered.
It was 17 all after Detroit's drive. So You had to be sitting there. This wasn't from the get-go, oh, my God, the Lions, you look horrible. They looked shaky. There's no doubt about it. But the bottom line was it was 17-all, one drive into the second half. Yeah. So they had to be feeling pretty good. But then Matthew Stafford got the snot knocked out of him, throwing 4 picks. Times. It was just brutal what went on.
Yeah, after that first throw, Darnold looked like the veteran, and Stafford, in his 10th season, by the way, looked like the rookie. I think this was the 4th or 5th time they said he's thrown at least 3 interceptions in a season opener, and Stafford admitted, hey, I got to do better.
Not the way we wanted to start it. Obviously, Quandre did a great job, came out early, made a great play, got the crowd into it. And then story of the game's turnovers, We had too many of them. I had too many of them. Can't do that to our team. I told those guys in there, I'll take this one, and hope I never have to say that again. I don't want to do it. I'll push myself as hard as I can to make sure I don't have to. Felt prepared coming into the game, just didn't make enough good decisions or good throws.
You got to go back a few years. He's the first Lions quarterback to throw 4 interceptions in a home season opener since Frankie Sinkwich.
Who?
September 19th, 1943, also threw 4.
I feel like I know a lot about football. I did not know Frankie Sinkwich.
Didn't know that one. A lot of credit to the and we'll get into it, the Jets and what they talked about with their defense and how well they played in the study and preparation and how it turns out goes into practical application on the field. It's a really good breakdown.
By the way, the one thing that is sort of ran the table perfectly with what happened to Detroit last night, Matt Patricia, new head coach, took the L. Coaches making their debuts, like their first year with their team, even if they've been there before, 0-7. Over week 1 of the NFL season, and that's a Stats Incredible, brought to you by OnStar. Advisors are ready to help when the unexpected happens. OnStar, be safe out there.
I was listening to you try and get all 7 this morning. I couldn't get the 7th one either. It was Vrabel what you were trying to get there. We couldn't. And in case you don't know, it was Gruden, Pat Shurmur for the Giants, Matt Nagy for the Bears, Steve Wilkes for the Cardinals, Frank Reich for the Colts, Matt Patricia for the Lions, and Mike Vrabel for the Titans. I couldn't get that one either.
Understand, because we forgot that game because it took 37 hours to finish.
Yeah, that's true.
Golic
and Wingo.
And Wingo.
Mm-hmm. Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. ESPN NFL analyst Brian Griese, along with Beth Mowins, called the game from Ford Field. And Brian joins us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Get triple action protection for optimal engine performance with Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. Brian, thanks for being with us. We'll get into the game, but first of all, New Jack City, really? Really? New Jack City? Come on, man. That's a legendary Wesley Snipes film.
Listen, all I knew was Wesley Snipes. I didn't know about the rest of the movie. I never saw it. What do you want from me?
I want more!
Again, context of that is that they used to be the Sons of Anarchy, that defensive line, but now the secondary for the Jets, calling themselves New Jack City. That was a movie, a 1991 movie. Wesley Snipes started. Ice-T was in it.
Chris Rock.
As well, Chris Rock. So that reference, I go on that side of the I'll give you that. If you didn't see it, it's tough for you to make a reference to it.
Listen, I was going with Mean Green. I mean, that's about all I had. I didn't know anything about New Jack City.
Are you going to watch it this week?
Probably not.
All right. I respect the honesty.
Okay, so we've moved on from the very controversial New Jack City moment in the Monday night game. But, Brian, it was pretty impressive. I mean, again, Sam Darnold's nickname at USC was the DNA, and he sort of showed it. Couldn't have started any worse. He's the youngest quarterback to start an NFL game since at least 1950, and boy, was he able to brush off that first play.
Certainly was. It was an impressive outing for young Sam Darnold. And, guys, I've spent the last 2 years calling games of his at USC, and it's more the same. I mean, this kid he really is a breath of fresh air. He is one of the most grounded individuals that I've seen come out of college football in quite some time. He's not buying into the hype. Everybody wants to make him, the next coming since Joe Namath, especially in the Big Apple. But he just seems to go about his business. He doesn't take himself too seriously. His teammates love him already after one game. And he's got the skill set, certainly, to exceed in the NFL. And it was a real pleasure to call his first game and watch him kind of grow, especially after the way the first throw ended up.
So taking numbers out of this, he was 16-21 for 198 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. What are the positive? What do you see of him in the huddle, in the pocket, outside the pocket, the intangibles that you like?
Yeah, Mike, I think, you always wonder, no matter how talented a guy is. You always wonder when the lights come on, and especially your first start on Monday Night Football, how's he going to react when the real bullets fly? And the stage wasn't too big for him. That was very clear. And you could tell after the first throw, he came back to the sideline. He didn't put his head down. He didn't go sulk on the bench. He got right back in there and came out and started firing. Now, certainly the things that he needs to work on, he has a unique ability to extend plays, and he reminds me a lot of Brett Favre. And I know that's not a fair comparison, but that's who he reminds me of, the way that he has a short memory. If he makes a mistake, he's not going to go in the tank. He will extend plays. He thinks he can make any throw on the field, and he just gets the team, the other 10 guys on the field with him, to believe that somehow, some way they're going to make a play to win the game. And that's not something you can teach. So I think that's why the Jets organization is 150% behind this young kid.
And Brian, more than anybody else, as our NFL analyst Brian Griese joins us, you would know what it's like to make that debut on Monday night, because your first start was on a Monday night game for the Denver Broncos, right?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Trey. We lost.
No, I'm just saying. So you know what he had to deal with at a very young age. So that makes it even maybe a little bit more impressive.
There's no question. It was about 20 years ago. I had to start against the Miami Dolphins and Dan Marino, and I remember going out there. First of all, I was just trying to keep my pregame meal down, but I remember going out on the field, and every single series, I felt like we had to score a touchdown because it's Dan Marino on the other side, and they scored 38 points in that game. So it was an experience I'll never forget. Sam will never forget last night. Certainly, everybody says, what's your welcome to the NFL moment? And now Sam Darnold will have an opportunity to tell his story about throwing an interception return for a touchdown, just like Brett Favre did on his first throw in the NFL. But he can follow it up and say, we won the game, and that'll be a great story for him.
Talking to ESPN NFL analyst Brian Griese, was on the call for Monday Night Football last night. And certainly Sam Darnold is going to be the headline, but I think the bulk of the story is this Jets team around him. How does play at that position, where the Jets have really struggled for a while, benefit the rest of this team that clearly played loose, intense, however you want to put it, all throughout the night?
You had a chance to see how a quarterback can influence the rest of a team. I mean, everybody asks, so how does a quarterback affect the defense, the special teams? But you saw a team that was completely different than a year ago, a team that won 5 games last year, but really didn't believe that they could win every single game. And Josh McCown played well. I mean, he's a good football player and deserved, the accolades that he got last year. But you could just see a different mindset, a different belief from the Jets. Now, granted, it was one game. We're not going to overreact. We know which division they play in and who's at the top of that division. But you look at the way the Buffalo Bills played on Sunday, the Miami Dolphins, I don't think you could say that the Jets are certainly worse than those teams. So they're going to have an opportunity to certainly compete in a much different way than they did a year ago.
Brian Griese with us, our NFL analyst, called the Monday night game between the Lions and the Jets, the debut of Sam Darnold. And speaking of that defense, Brian, Jamal Adams and others sort of made it pretty clear that they knew what was coming from the Detroit Lions, from either scouting or the Lions not changing up their calls. What did you make of them saying, hey, we knew a lot of the plays that they were trying to run?
Yeah, I never really buy much into that, to be honest with you, Trey. I mean, I think Jamal Adams is a great player. I'm really excited to see him come back in his second year and what he can do. He reminds me a lot of Brian Dawkins, the way he plays the run, supports at the line of scrimmage. And then in the secondary, they've got some talent now. They added Tremaine Johnson, who I think was a big piece for them. So with Mo Claiborne on the other side, that's something that they can build around. And then if they get that pass rush, that's been the real Achilles heel for the New York Jets, is to get some help for Leonard Williams from a pass rush situation. They draft Nate Shepard, a young kid out of Fort Hays State, of all places, who played well last night. They get Avery Williamson at Mike linebacker. So they have some pieces. But the thing about the Jets is they're in a rebuild. They're in a second year of a rebuild. Todd Bowles, talking with him, that's very clear what they're trying to accomplish. And I think they won the sweepstakes, right? Not getting Kirk Cousins and having to pay $90 million guaranteed. You remember back, they were the ones that that offered $90 million. The Vikings offered $84, and so they missed that, and then they regroup with Plan B, and then they end up paying Sam Darnold $30 million over 4 years, and they can go spend that money in free agency to get guys like Tremaine Johnson. And after this year, guys, they'll have $98 million in cap space to go out and get more pieces on offense. So the Jets are building something that I think is going to be even more impressive as the next years come.
Talking to Brian Griese. Well, let's talk about the other team. Matt Patricia, the rookie head coach, one of 7 new head coaches that all lost this past weekend, but they have a quarterback in his 10th year in Matthew Stafford. The last 2 years only threw 10 interceptions in each of those years. And while they started off the game with a pick 6, and then they did tie the game up 17-all the first drive in the third quarter, he had a tough night with the interceptions. What is going on with him and that offense?
Yeah, certainly the big storyline coming in was not, Matt Stafford and could he and a group of talented wide receivers and Marvin Jones and Golden Tate certainly produced. The question was, could they have a running game that could go with that passing attack? And they bring in LeGarrette Blount. They go draft Kerryon Johnson. They draft in the first round an offensive lineman and Frank Ragnow, and everybody wanted to see how that was going to play out. But the offense for the Detroit Lions couldn't get out of their own way last night. And, I think at the end of the day, Matt Stafford, he's an excellent quarterback, one of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the league the last 5 years statistically, but he has never won that playoff game. And that's going to continue to follow him. I think I'm not going to overreact to the Jets. I'm not going to overreact to Matt Stafford in the first week, but they've got to figure some things out up front offensively because they couldn't block the Jets' defensive line. There was no time for him to throw the football. Certainly, he didn't make the right reads, and he'd be the first to tell you he didn't play very well. But I'm not going to put it all at the feet of Matt Stafford. They need to figure some things out and figure them out fast. And you look at Matt Patricia, who for the last 14 years has had nothing but success at the New England Patriots. And if in your first game to come out and lay an egg like that, he's got some decisions to make pretty quickly here.
All right, so you're saving all your overreaction for right now, Brian. Let's say this morning you're inside the New York Giants building. They look up, and they've been hearing all about you're going to regret taking a running back instead of one of these quarterbacks. Now they got a first-hand look at a guy they could have had in Sam Darnold. Is there any of that tinge of regret setting in this morning?
That will be the question for not just for today, but I think for the next 10 years as we watch the careers of Saquon Barkley and of Sam Darnold play out. Saquon Barkley is going to be an excellent player. There's no question. But I think that Sam Darnold will prove to be the steal of this draft at the third position. And, yeah, I do think that the New York Giants will be kicking themselves for not taking him.
Listen, if that's the case, I'm not sure there's anything Saquon can do to justify. I mean, he could have a great career, but if, as you said, Brian, Sam is going to be that good, I'm not sure there's anything that Saquon can do except for rush for maybe 2,000 yards 3 times in a row to justify passing on a franchise quarterback like Sam Darnold. All right, Brian Griese with us, our NFL analyst who called the Monday night game between the Jets and the Lions. A big win for the Jets and Sam Darnold. And real quickly, we'll just finish up here because it sounds like you're at the airport. I know you got to go and get through security and all this whatnot. New Jack City came out in 1991. Wesley Snipes' vehicle. Brett Favre, who, by the way, like Sam Darnold, his first pass in the NFL was a pick 6. It was his favorite movie. So just so you know, it all comes back to football and Brett Favre. We can all tie it together.
If I can get it on the plane, I'll watch it on the plane. How about that?
Perfect. Brian, thanks for being with us this morning. Thanks,
Brian.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
Golic.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night. No doubt about it.
And Wingo.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. And when you need to hire fast, accelerate your results with sponsored jobs. New users can try for free at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations. Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra. Ask for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's hotspots.
There are very few things in this world that are worth more than Mike Golic's paycheck. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance
In
Line.
defense, he got me the job, so it's his to bet.
There you go. Yes, but you've kept it.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I just had to give that one for nepotism Twitter.
Yeah, before it all comes out.
What's up, Dave?
They never would have said that. I don't know why you bring that up.
No.
Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here with you. Again, you're glad you're with us on this Tuesday morning. You can get in touch with us two ways. 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed at Golic and Wingo, where we're asking you, what did you learn from week 1 of the NFL season? And the correct answer is always, as Al Michael says, nobody knows anything. But feel free to add in whatever you like. Or you can call in 860-506-5505. We'll get to some of those voicemails. We want to know what you thought of Sam Darnold's debut, how bad the Lions looked in Matt Patricia's debut, how good you think the Rams might be, and how concerned or not you might be about John Gruden's Raiders after week 1. We'll get into all of that, but there's a lot to get into as we begin to sort of disseminate everything that happened week 1 of the NFL's regular season in 2018. And one thing remained the same, guys. No matter where or when the Texans play the Patriots are going to win. They won 27-20 on Sunday in Foxborough. Houston now falls to 0-7 all time, including playoff games when facing New England. But there was a critical series of events that happened at the end of the first half. There was a pass completed to Rob Gronkowski, and it was inside of 2 minutes. So Bill O'Brien could not challenge. However, the Patriots rushed up to the line of scrimmage because they were like, we're not sure if that's a catch. Under 2 minutes, a review can only come from New York, come from upstairs. So there was some thinking about the idea that maybe Bill O'Brien, because 1:46 left in the half,
right?
He had timeouts left, 1:05 left in the half, 1:05 left in the half, that he had some timeouts left. Perhaps he should have called one of those timeouts, which we've seen coaches do several times over the last few years, and give the officials a chance to say, maybe we should take a look at that catch. Because watching it all, we weren't sure if it was a catch or not, and you never know what's going to happen in the new interpretation of the rule this year. So after the game, Bill O'Brien was asked specifically about why he did or did not, or specifically did not, use a timeout there to give the refs more time to think about maybe challenging or taking a look at that catch on replay.
It's not my job to do that. And let me make it clear that I don't have challenges with under 2 minutes to go. Okay, so we're all clear on that. That's not my job, though, to call a timeout to make their job easier. You know, what I'm trying to do is make sure that we go into halftime with a 14-6 lead. I mean, down 14-6. You know, I'm not trying to say call a timeout there. They rule it a catch. Now the Patriots have more time to put a play together. So, you know, whatever you're going to write, you're going to write. But that's not my job to do that.
Go back to the Gronkowski catch. Were you disappointed they didn't review that?
I have no idea, Mark. These are all questions, which I probably should have said to John in the beginning. These are questions for Al Riveron in the NFL, not for me. They're not questions for me. It's not my job.
Couple of things there. One, there is credence to the idea, okay, if you call the timeout, do you give the Patriots more time to strategize and all that kind of stuff? I understand that, but probably nobody is better in the NFL at having situational things managed than the Patriots. Whether you had the timeout or not, they pretty much knew what they were going to do on the next play. And again, Mike, I would argue, I think it is kind of his job to be able to do that.
I mean, I can kind of see his point. He said he did talk about also the timeout and stopping the clock. He didn't want to stop the clock.
Right.
He wanted to keep the clock. I can understand that. The play started with 1:05 to go. The next play snapped with 42 seconds to go. As far as I'm concerned, New York should have stopped it. If there was any kind of thought process about that, they should have just stopped it and said, we're going to get a look at it. But they didn't. And New England did exactly what teams do. You hustle down when there's a controversial play. You try and get the next snap off, which is going to be a throwaway play, just to get the snap off because they can't review after the snap.
Right, but here's what makes it a little more dicey in how it played out. And again, hindsight is 20/20. I understand that. Tony Correnti, the game referee, said The situation was that New York did get back to us. However, unfortunately, they didn't get the game officials on the field until after the play had started. So that lets you think if he had called timeout, they might have reviewed that play.
You know what? I'm not going to put it on O'Brien. I'm not. I'm putting that on New York. I mean, they got to get that play stopped. And I get Bill O'Brien say, I don't want to stop the clock. I want to keep that clock running as well. So while I get it, I understand the philosophy of calling the timeout, and maybe you do get the review. I do get it. But if you're asking me to weigh one or the other, I can't. Hindsight being 2020, I don't even know what they would have reviewed. Bill O'Brien thought it was a catch, but we don't know.
Well, they would have reviewed whether or not it was a catch.
Right. But if it was a catch, and then he got no win, then he blew a timeout. The clock stops for New England,
but
and
again,
he got
there was
nothing.
105 left in the. So I'm not sure holding the timeout mattered much in this situation.
I guess that's what I mean.
Well,
if you're going to try,
no, he wasn't holding the timeout for himself. He didn't want to stop the clock for New England.
Well, I don't know. I guess I look in that situation, and if that's truly how he feels, then great. That's on your relationship with the team, because the one thing is, you know this, if you're going to be a coach and preach accountability, you better be accountable when something falls under your umbrella. And so depending on what people know and what people believe and think about Bill O'Brien in that locker room, that can be taken one of two very different ways. Because if you get in a situation where Bill O'Brien looks like he's passing the buck on this, because right, wrong, or indifferent, he can say it's not his responsibility. It's something we've seen other coaches do. And so if you're a player who's been around and seen that, and you look and say, well, my head coach punted on that here, and a team got a leg up on us because they were able to beat the clock, that matters. That to me, I don't know, that matters.
I will agree with him saying that doesn't sound good, because you can use that is part of strategy to use that timeout to see if it would go to review. So I do agree with that. I agree with him saying disagree with him saying it's not my job. It can be in your job description to give the officials a chance to stop the play.
We've seen that happen a lot.
We have. I guess what I'm saying is overall the strategy he went with, I don't have that big of a problem with. Him saying it wasn't his job, I understand where people could have a problem with that.
Yeah, that part of it, because it was almost that defiance, and I understand the frustration that comes at times with speaking in the media that can sort of breed that. You feel like everyone's trying to put this on you. But the best head coaches and the best leaders that I've been around in most cases will take the blame for everything. The buck stops with me is usually the line from the head coach, because that's what they're paid to do. Well, you can say and you can argue for your strategy in that situation, but as the head man, that's why you ask for the job, because you want these things to fall on you.
And the other thing, if you were listening to the broadcast, it was Jim Nantz and Tony Romo doing the game. Nance was saying at the time, boy, they might want to call a timeout and make sure New York takes a look at that play.
That's where I do fault him by saying it's not my job. Well, it is part of his job. I do agree with that.
And look, you can always say hindsight is 20/20, but understand football is a zero-sum game. There's no theoretical here. If it worked and then it was a part of the result, the only thing that matters is the results. That's the only thing that matters here. You can't say, well, 9 times out of, did this thing work or did it not work in helping your team win a game? That's all that matters.
Right.
There's no theoretical science here. It's a zero-sum game. Either things worked well or they didn't, or things didn't work well and they didn't work well. There's no middle ground here. That's why you can't say, well, you can't judge it by the result. Yeah, that's the only thing you can judge it by is how it matters, wins and losses. And perhaps upon second opinion, which is brought to you by Cleveland Clinic, men, to avoid health issues getting worse, mention it to a doctor. Perhaps he would have liked a second opinion there. Visit clevelandclinic.org/mention it, and perhaps maybe looking at it again, Bill O'Brien would have called a timeout. Maybe that might have been a mistake. Coming up, the NFL admitted to making a mistake, and it may have cost a team a game.
Golic and Wingo.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold.
It's very interesting where that went.
Ryder Cup member Tony Finau. Tony, good morning. How are you?
Hey, man, quite the introduction. Thanks, guys. Good morning.
Thanks for being with us. Listen, all kidding aside, we joked that we did this for you, but you did it yourself. What does it mean for you to seal down that final pick on the Ryder Cup team?
Hey, it means everything to my career. It means a lot. Very satisfying feeling, and just the beginning. I honestly feel that way, and man, I'm just excited to add my skills and talent to a team that's already stacked and already an incredible team. So I'm pretty proud and just proud to be able to represent the USA, a country that I'm proud to be from.
Well, take us all into this decision, because we don't know about the process. We know Jim Furyk's going to make the captain's picks. Do you have any idea where you stood, you or your agent being told anything? You have to finish here, you have to do this well. What's kind of the process before you got that call?
Yeah, kind of funny. I just, I never got the call. So, he gave me a courtesy call, Jim did, and told me, the 3 picks that he was going to make, the first 3 picks he was going to make. And basically told me, I need to keep, playing well and keep doing what I'm doing. So, obviously to me, I was just trying to keep my head down as best I can and just play good golf and just let my game do the talking. And, luckily for me, there was still 1 spot left after those 3 picks. And, I felt like it was a good chance to make it, but you just never know. You just never know what they're thinking. And there's a lot that goes into that type of choice and the picks. But I felt like I was, pretty high on their list. And if I could continue to play well and just try and win every tournament I play, especially here in the playoffs, then the rest will take care of itself. And it definitely has. So it's pretty satisfying feeling for me. And again, man, I'm excited to represent the USA in the Ryder Cup.
And the Golic and Wingo show. As Tony Finau joins us with us, the final pick, the captain's pick on the Ryder Cup team. You certainly, we listed your last 15 rounds. You certainly continued to play good golf. So how did you officially know? Did Jim call you? Did you get a text? How did that go down?
Yeah, so I finished my round yesterday. As soon as I finished, I got a text from him, and basically, hey, when you got a couple minutes in private, you're gonna give me a call. So, at that time, I knew, he was gonna give me some news. I was hoping it was good, but I try not to get my hopes up, throughout the process, and just keep my head down and play golf, and that's all I could do, and that's what I'm best at. So, I did a good job of that, and so, I gave him a shout yesterday after I played. And, he told me, hey, welcome to the Ryder Cup. So it was, I had goosebumps and just all that, and just what that entails for someone in my position is, it's an extreme honor to be part of the team. And now that it's official, I have my sights on, getting over to Paris and help bringing that cup back for our team.
Absolutely. And just real quickly, how much do you think that playing those 2 rounds with Jim Furyk at the PGA helped you, especially that round where you had 10 birdies?
Yeah, I think it helped for sure to be able to play, that well that second round and just show him, I can make birdies and, just to have him see my game up close, I think was something that's very important and important to me. So I was happy that, when I saw the pairings, I was pleased just because, I knew, hopefully I was one of the guys that were being looked at and he was going to be able to see my game up close. It's something that he's never really seen. Obviously you can see the scores and things like that and things, but he's never seen me play in person. So I thought that was extremely important and, maybe definitely the tipping point to get me on the team.
Tony Finau joining us, member of the U.S. Ryder Cup team now. 3 top 10 finishes in the major this year. I'm asking for an honest moment here, Tony, because it's interesting when you say you got the test from Furyk and he wanted you to call him, because I could see you thinking it could go either way. Maybe he's giving you a courtesy call that he chose someone else or chose you. What in your mind, were you thinking it was going to be a bad call or a good call?
Yeah, no, honestly, I thought it was going to be a great call. I felt good about the way I've been playing, and either way, it would have been tough to not be on the team the way I've been playing. But I know that my career has been on the up and up, and I have a positive attitude, and I try to keep it that way. But I had a great feeling about the call, and it definitely worked out. When he announced, hey, welcome to the Ryder Cup, you're officially a member of the team. I still have goosebumps just from talking about it. So it's a time I'll always remember, and just a special moment for me. Whether I make 8 teams, 4 teams, whatever the case, making this first team is something that I always remember.
And it is different when we got, and again, for most of the people out there that are hacks like me, you sit there and look and you see you play 4-ball, you play alternate shot. How much different is the strategy when you do all that as opposed to stroke play on the tour?
Yeah, alternate shot is quite a bit different. Alternate shot is a whole different deal because you're hitting 1 or 2 shots a hole, so it's hard to get into a rhythm. And as a team, if you get off to a shaky start or your partner hits a bad shot, sometimes there can be some weird mojo. So alternate shot is definitely different. Best ball is pretty much golf, pretty much the golf we're used to. We play our own ball and we just try to make as many birdies as possible. And so those are the two different games. Honestly, alternate shot is extremely tough, and it's extremely tough to get momentum in. But if you play well and you mesh well with your partner in alternate shot, you can kind of run away with the match. So it's an intriguing format, and man, I'm excited to just get with the guys, kind of see what who fits with who, and just to be in that team room and the camaraderie that we'll have. I'm really stoked for.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I'm sure a lot of people would be like to pair with you, knowing that you can put up a birdie from almost anywhere. But you guys are going on the road, and listen, this has been a real problem for the U.S. team. They have not won a Ryder Cup on European soil since 1993. Tony Finau with us. On paper, this is one of the strongest Ryder Cups the U.S. has ever had, but how much do you guys realize it's going to be hard to go over there and get the W?
Yeah, we know it's going to be extremely tough. We've had incredible teams that have gone over there. And we get beat a lot and all the time. So something that the captain has already stressed to us in previous hopeful meetings, Ryder Cup hopeful meetings, and different things like that, is his desire to go over there and bring the cup back. So I'm happy to be a part of the team that that's our mission. We want to go over there and accomplish that, and hopefully we can get it done. It's been way too long. 25 years is a long time to be waiting to bring the cup back. So it's in our hands now, and hopefully when it's all said and done at the end of September, we're bringing it back home.
Well, we are looking forward to watching you go out there and dominate, and we want the smack talk to begin now. Tony, we appreciate you being with us. Congratulations. We've been on this train since Augusta, and we really are excited to see you make the team. Best of luck to you, Tony. Thanks for being with us this morning, man.
Oh, of course. Really appreciate you guys. Power of positive thinking. You guys told me it was going to happen, and you guys are like, the prophecy came true. So thanks, guys.
We'll take all the credit because we are the pettiest show in America, but you actually did it. Tony Finau with us, the final member of the U.S. captain, the U.S. Ryder Cup team, the captain's pick. Just a great guy.
Great guy.
Absolutely great.
Golic and Wingo.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
It's a busy time in the NFL, especially for the fans. There's couches to fluff, bandwagon jerseys to buy, and most importantly, getting the perfect snack lineup ready. If you're going to watch football as hard as it deserves to be watched, you're going to need California almonds. With 6 grams of energy-giving protein, you'll have the stamina you need for the anxious sweats, happy jumps, and of course, the angry convulsing. Plus, they're portable, in case you need some fresh air and a screaming break. Visit almonds.com and own every day of the season with California almonds.
Hi, Golic and Wingo with you here, ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We're glad you're with us, presented by Progressive Insurance. If you weren't with us in the last break, we had our moment of silence for what today represents. It was 17 years ago that one of the worst and darkest days in our nation's history took place, the September 11th attacks in 2001 in New York City, Washington, D.C., and that plane that fell in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And, Mike, you and I have very similar recollections of that day because of what was going on. We were both scheduled to be on the air that day, you on the radio with Mike, and I was scheduled to do the 6 o'clock Sports Center with Bob Lee, and a lot of us had a lot of question marks. I mean, for me, I mean, you had already been on the air when it happened.
That was, in the studio Greenie and I were in, we had a bunch of TVs. Obviously, the sound is down on it because you don't want sound up while we're on air. And we started seeing the reports, and you started seeing, one of the towers smoking, and you're kind of wondering what's going on. Then you see plane crash. You're wondering if it was, you had no idea you were associating that with the terrorist act.
Correct.
Until the next plane went into the other tower, and we were like, we were actually had Digger Phelps on at the time. We had Digger Phelps on at that time for a number of years after that, going forward. But it was on with Digger, and then we said goodbye to Digger, and then for the rest of that show, obviously, it was 8:46 Eastern. We had another hour and 15 minutes to where we were like everybody else, but we just happened to be on, radio and TV of trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And then the attacks, and the other places as well. We were just human. We were just Americans at that point.
Right.
We weren't sports broadcasters. And so we finished that show, and we thought for sure that they would just cover us the next day on both radio and TV with ABC News and say, this is what people are going to want to be hearing. And they, I remember them sitting down with us and asking Greenie and I, they said, listen, we'd like you to go on as just two Americans, just two people, not sportscasters, just people, and just talk at it from that perspective, because that's what we all were. There were obviously the leaders who were dealing with all of it, but then there was all of us who were just like, what's going on?
Right.
What's happening with this? And so we went on for the next show. And I remember Greenie saying he has saved that show and will save it forever, of that show that we did. And then I will never forget the college, was sports going to go on? What was going to happen? They're going to take some time off. And the first college game that I did after that, they kind of made our groups to make it closer to where you could drive. They didn't want anybody flying for obvious reasons. And it was a game that Dave Barnett, Bill Curry, myself did in Syracuse. And I will never forget when that national anthem played. You never saw more people singing and being into it. They're playing God Bless America. There were tears streaming down our faces in the booth. It was one of the more emotional things I had ever been through. It was unreal, but to be on air when it was actually happening and then on the next day was something I obviously will never forget.
Yeah, that happened as you guys were on the air and you had to deal with it in real time. From my perspective that day, I was coming into work as this all was happening because Bob Lee and I were supposed to do the 6 o'clock Sports Center that day. And as I was pulling out of the driveway at the house, I remember Janice yelled out the window, a bomb just went off at the Pentagon. Of course, we knew at the time that was another plane that had hit the Pentagon. And I remember driving into work thinking, what the hell am I going to say today about sports that is of any significance to anyone? And we just sort of that morning, we're all sitting in the old newsroom, which is really right where we are right now, the way the building was configured. Where we are right now in this radio studio used to be the old newsroom. And we were trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do? And there was this really long discussion about should we just seed, because at that point we were on the TV side just seeding all our airtime.
Right, because now this is hours after.
Yeah, this is ABC News and everything was going on there. And we had a show coming on at 6 o'clock and the debate was, do we go on the air? Do we not go on the air? What do we do? And I'll never forget this. Bob Lee, in all his wisdom, said, look, this is what we do. This is our job. And whether it's of significance or insignificance from a historical perspective, I think we need to be on the air to explain from a sports perspective how this affected the world that we cover. And then there was a lot of debate about that. And I'll be honest with you, I was like, we should just see this, and this is way more important, and let's do that. But in hindsight, we did go on the air. It was going to be just for an hour at 6 o'clock that night. And I think we ended up being on the air for 4.5 hours that night, going through everything. There was a hockey game or a preseason hockey game that was played.
Well, think
somewhere.
of all the sports that were going on. And if you were a team that was going to be at home, that players were there, and how many came on and talked about seeing, live what was going on.
And then the debate became, as you said, well, what was going to happen? And initially, I believe the college football decided they were going to play all the games that weekend. And then the big thing was the NFL, because Pete Rozelle, the former NFL commissioner, said to his dying day, his biggest regret was that they played games the weekend after John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And so once the NFL, I can't remember if it was that Monday night or the next day. I apologize for not remembering specifically. When the NFL made the decision to not play games that weekend,
everybody kind of followed.
That pretty much was the deciding factor after that. It was an unusual day. It was a very somber day. It was a weird day of not knowing your place in the world. Because let's be honest, we do this as an entertainment value for people. Sports should not be your life. Sports should be your pleasant diversion from life. And there was no way of getting around and having a pleasant diversion.
No, there wasn't. And we were just Americans then. We were humans. We were all dealing with it. No matter what your walk in life was, we all had to deal with that somehow, some way.
Yeah, and again, we made the decision to go on the air, and Bob Lee was a big part of that, and I think he helped us make the right call. So we are remembering that day forever. Coming up, we'll get to something that is a little diversion, how an 11-year-old is smarter than all of us.
Golic
makes me want to vomit and then punch you square in the face.
And Wingo.
Oh, he's saucy today.
Our friend Joe Thomas, who in 5 years is walking into the Hall of Fame, put a little video of that Bud Light cooler that remains locked in Cleveland until they get that first win. And late in that game, he was excited and showing the thing, and then it ends up a tie. So we're delighted for a lot of reasons to welcome in Joe Thomas, 10-time Pro Bowler. Is going to be with us every week. And by the way, the gift he gave us outside, we'll get into in a minute, is just fantastic. But, Joe, I got to ask, do you in any way regret putting the picture of that Bud Light cooler locked in light of what happened Sunday in Cleveland?
Oh, absolutely not. I think that was an important message to send to the team that, hey, baby, we're only a few seconds away from these Bud Lights, so don't screw it up. And unfortunately, they did. But I'm still feeling good because, Wingo, you were wrong at the beginning. They actually did break their losing streak. They did not lose on Sunday, which is the first time since 2004 that they didn't lose the opener, and, of course, in a couple years since they did not lose a game.
Yeah, I did. You're right. I did put it on Twitter. The Browns breaking their losing streak by not winning is the most Browns thing ever. But, listen, we all believe they're going to win multiple games, Joe. I want everyone to know that. Golic Jr. and I are all 100% on the idea that you guys are going to win multiple games.
Good. I totally agree. I think the Browns are going to have a much better season than people expect.
So as we finished week 1 in the NFL, and so it's an overreaction. Monday was yesterday, and 2 games last night to finish out week 1. How did you as a player, between yourself personally and then in the locker room with your teammates, what were your thought processes after week 1? I don't imagine there was too much overreaction there.
Well, that was one of the difficult things that rookies have to learn, is that especially early on in the season, the first few games, whatever happens, there's an enormous overreaction. So if you win the game, everyone's talking about, oh, we're going to the Super Bowl, and everyone already making playoff plans. But then when you lose, it's like, oh, time to fire the coach. We need a new quarterback. We need a coordinator. So it's really important that your process is always the same on Mondays. You come in, you review the film, and you go by what the film says, not by what the scoreboard says, because in the NFL, a game is decided by a couple plays usually. And if those 2 plays happen to be good plays for you, you're going to feel way too good about the rest of the game. And if those couple plays were bad, including like maybe a block kick or something like that, you're going to feel way too bad about the plays that happened before, and you're going to be too critical, and you're going to lose some of the learning that has to happen on a Monday after a game.
Joe Thomas with us this morning, and we cannot go any farther talking to Joe without acknowledging what he did. Joe sent us here at the show staff just a whole bucket full, tons of food from Mission Barbecue, and we've been snacking on it all this morning, and it's delightful, but Mike, this is killing you.
Yeah, it is. I'll get into it. I can't eat any of it this morning. I'm going to put some aside and save it to you, Joe, but that was very nice of you to do. What is there a reason why you just trying to suck up to us or what? What's going on?
Well, I'm trying to torture you, Golic, because I know you can't have any right now. So that was the main point. But no, at Mission Barbecue, we're the premier barbecue restaurant in America, as you probably know.
Yes.
But our mission is to serve, right? We want to always say thank you to the fire, police, and first responders in our community. And being that it's September 11th, it's a very special day to remember our heroes. And so we thought it would be right to give my good friends Golic and Wingo a little bit of taste of what freedom tastes like.
And let me tell you what, the barbecue, phenomenal, but I do understand you have your own beer and you have our address. So what do you think?
That's next week. You're going to spoil the surprise, Golic.
That's what he does. He just ruins it for everybody, just so you know, Joe. All right, the Steelers sort of spoiled the surprise with blocking that kick where we all thought Cleveland was going to win that game. T.J. Watt had an unbelievable game, 4 sacks in that game for the Steelers, as well as the block kick. But there are a couple of players that I thought absolutely balled out for the Cleveland Browns, and that was Denzel Ward, who I think became the first top 10 pick in the common draft era, Joe, to have 2 interceptions in his first game. And my God, Myles Garrett is Thor's hammer. I mean, he is just unbelievable. As a former left tackle, how much do you appreciate, A, not playing against him now, and B, the special skills he brings to the defensive line of the Cleveland Browns?
Well, after you draft a guy number 1 overall, you still really don't know what he's got until you see him in practice. And so practicing against him last year, it didn't take too long to realize how good he was going to be. And at that moment last year, I was really happy that I was practicing against him because that meant I didn't have to play against him on Sundays. But when I watch him out there this year, I feel really bad for the guys that go against him because he doesn't really have any weaknesses. And he's so strong, but he bends so well and he's so quick that there's really nothing he can't do well. And so whatever you have as a tackle, you're probably going to have a little bit of a weakness somewhere, and he's going to be able to exploit it. So if he's able to remain healthy this year, he's going to be extremely dangerous.
Joe Thomas joining us, 10-time Pro Bowl tackle, 7-time first-team All-Pro as well, will be joining us every week. So there's always week one overreaction. Now that you're an analyst and not playing anymore, you get to overreact to things. So what did you see in week one that surprised you good or surprised you bad?
Well, both of them happened in the same game, actually. On my Tomahawk podcast last week, I proclaimed that the Saints were going to win the Super Bowl and Tampa Bay Buccaneers were going to have the worst record in the league.
Wow.
So clearly I was both surprised good and bad in one game.
Which one surprised you more than what one team did do or what one team didn't do?
Honestly, we've seen Ryan Fitzmagic do what he did before, so that wasn't entirely out of nowhere, but I think everyone expected the Saints defense to be much, much better. And they made big strides last year after several years of being really bad. And so for them to be able to give up the points that they did, that was just astounding. And I think they almost have to go back to the drawing board after a disastrous performance like that.
You know, a lot of times I think sometimes fans look at players like robots. They go out and they play. That's what their job to do. They get ready to play and they go play. But there's emotion out there as well. Talk about the emotion, especially from the O-line to a quarterback. When you see in the second half a guy like Aaron Rodgers who gets carted off the field in the first half come running back on the field in the second half to help your team.
Well, as an old lineman, your job is to protect the quarterback first and foremost. I mean, that's how you have a job in the NFL, right? If you can't run block, you can still play in the NFL if you can keep your quarterback upright. And so when you have a guy like that go down, and especially a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who you know your entire season, everybody's livelihood on that Green Bay Packers roster and staff counts on number 12 being upright and throwing touchdowns all year. So when he goes down and you realize that's because you are giving up hits on him, that's the worst feeling in pro football. So for him to come back out of the locker room after everyone kind of expected, man, it might be so bad he might go on IR all year. And for him to come out of the locker room like that, that gives an enormous jolt in the arm of energy to that entire team that says, all right, we got to pick this thing up. And we have a chance because 12 is back there.
It certainly does give a lot of people energy, and something that can deflate a lot of energy, Joe, from a team or a locker room is letting one of your best players go and seeing them shine on the stage and then not being able to duplicate in your first game what he brought to the table. And of course, I'm talking about Khalil Mack, who had an unbelievable game against the Green Bay Packers, and then the Raiders outscored 23-0 in the second half in John Gruden's return in the black hole as they lose to the Rams 33-13. Listen, when you let a guy go, and that's what they decided to move on from him. How quickly can things turn inside a locker room when you say, hey, that guy can still play and he should have been here with us?
Well, there was definitely a lot of question marks in the locker room. There was a lot of guys scratching their heads and looking at each other going, what does the organization think about this team right now? Because you don't give up the premier pass rusher in the game in his prime in a season that you think you're going to win the Super Bowl. So they got to be looking at each other going, are these guys that are running the show waiting until we move to Las Vegas to really try to put a team together? Do they not think we're good enough to win right now? Why are they saving draft picks for next year's team and the year after that? And so that's a really tough thing for a coach to walk into that locker room and say, hey, we got rid of our best player because, well, here's the reason, and then have no good reasons to be able to back it up.
Future Hall of Famer Joe Thomas joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, as he will every week. Situation in Pittsburgh. We saw James Conner score. The offensive line lose their collective minds in celebration. We've seen Instagram and Twitter back and forth after that game between the O-line and Le'Veon Bell. Can Le'Veon Bell go back in that locker room?
Well, I think he could, but unfortunately, I think it's going to get more ugly before it gets better because Le'Veon Bell does not look like he's going to show up anytime soon, but he will have to show up at some point this year because he needs to get that credited season in order to be a free agent next year. So I fully expect the way that this is going to go is right about, 6 games left in the season, Le'Veon Bell is going to show up and he's going to be given half effort because he doesn't want to get hurt at that point, and he's just showing up because he has to. It's almost like the Marshawn Lynch, I'm only here because I have to be. That's what Le'Veon Bell is going to be, and it's going to be so ugly, and there's going to be so much drama in that locker room because who knows Le'Veon Bell might get a hangnail or a tweaked ankle in practice and might be sitting out in the middle of a playoff run, and it's just going to get even more ugly.
That would get very, very ugly. Joe Thomas joining us again. Thank you for the Mission Barbecue. I will enjoy it tomorrow, no doubt about that. But a bigger congratulations, and the biggest thing to happen in your life certainly in a bit is you and your wife, or your wife really, your wife Annie did the work. You guys had a little baby girl, Reese, so just recently, how are wife and baby doing?
Everybody is doing great. We had the baby Friday night, and everybody's at home. I wish we could say we were all sleeping, but we are all doing very well.
Yeah, that. Good luck with that.
Yeah,
that won't happen for a while, but trust me, the end result is always worth it, as you well know. Joe, thanks for being with us this morning, and again, thanks for the barbecue, which is absolutely torturing Golic in the moment. And we'll be expecting the beer, so we appreciate talking to you, buddy.
Yes, 73 beer from Great Lakes Brewing next week, guys. Thank you very much.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or just ask your smart speaker to play Golic and Wingo. Plus, you can check the guys out live weekday mornings from 6 to 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra. Ask for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's Hotspots.